Dr. Riek defense lawyer Professor PLO Lumumba arrive in South Sudan capital city Juba ahead of court trial scheduled for September 22, 2025, is the great African lawyer from Kenya. Professor PLO Lumumba arrives in Juba ahead of Dr. Riek Machar's trial. Juba, September 19, 2025. The South Sudanese capital witnessed heightened tension on Friday as renowned Kenyan lawyer and Pan-Africanist Professor Patrick Locke Otieno, PLO, Lumumba arrived in Juba ahead of the highly anticipated trial of First Vice President and SPLMIO Chairman, Dr. Riek Machar Teni Durgan. The proceedings, scheduled to begin on Monday, September 22nd at 9 a.m., are already being described by observers as one of the most politically charged legal battles in the country's young history. Dr. Machar faces charges of murder, treason, and crimes against humanity, allegations his party has dismissed as fabricated and politically motivated. A star legal defender joins the case. Professor Lumumba, widely regarded as one of Africa's foremost legal scholars and a fierce advocate of Pan-African justice, has joined Machar's international defense team. His presence is expected to add significant weight and visibility to the case. This is not just a trial of Dr. Riek Machar. It is a test of South Sudan's justice system and its commitment to the rule of law. Lumumba told journalists briefly at Juba International Airport. Supporters of Machar gathered outside the airport chanting slogans, while government security forces maintained a heavy presence across Juba, underscoring the high-stakes nature of the trial. Political tensions on the rise. The trial comes at a time when relations between the ruling SPLMIG under President Salva Kiir Mayardit and the SPLMIO are at their lowest point since the signing of the revitalized peace agreement in 2018. Last week, Machar was suspended from his position as first vice president pending the trial, a move the SPLMIO denounced as unconstitutional. The opposition party has warned that the charges against their leader risk pushing the country back toward instability. This is nothing but a political witch hunt. The government wants to silence the voice of reform and democracy, said Palmai Deng, SPLMIO spokesman, in an interview. Regional and international attention. Regional and international actors are closely watching the unfolding events. Diplomats from IGAD, the African Union, and representatives of the United Nations mission in South Sudan, UNMISS, are expected to attend the trial as observers. Western embassies have also expressed concern over due process and the safety of political detainees. In a joint statement earlier this week, the US, UK, and Norway, the Troika, urged South Sudan to ensure the trial meets international standards of transparency, fairness, and independence. A nation on edge. Inside Juba, ordinary citizens are divided. Some see the trial as a step toward accountability, while others fear it will reopen wounds of the civil wars that devastated the nation between 2013 and 2018. Markets, government offices, and residential areas in the capital were reported to be unusually tense on Friday evening, with additional checkpoints set up on major roads. Political analysts warned that the outcome of the trial could reshape South Sudan's political future. If the case is mishandled, the peace agreement could collapse, and the country may once again slide into widespread violence, said Dr. James Okuk, a political analyst in Juba. What next? The trial is set to begin on Monday under heavy security. Professor Lumumba and a team of regional and international lawyers are expected to argue that the charges against Machar violate both South Sudan's transitional constitution and international law. For many South Sudanese, the coming week will be pivotal. Whether the trial brings justice or deepens political rifts remains to be seen. But one thing is clear: the eyes of Africa are now firmly on Juba. Lawyer PLO Lumumba arrives in Juba ahead of Machar's trial. Prominent Kenyan lawyer and Pan-Africanist Professor PLO Lumumba has arrived in Juba this afternoon ahead of the scheduled trial of South Sudan's first vice president and SPLMIO chairman, Dr. Riek Machar Teni Durgan. Lumumba, who is widely respected across the continent for his sharp legal mind and outspoken defense of democracy, is expected to play a central role in Machar's legal team. His arrival has drawn considerable attention from citizens, political leaders, and international observers, as the trial is widely regarded as one of the most politically sensitive cases in South Sudan's history. Security in Juba has been visibly tightened, with checkpoints and military patrols reported around key government buildings. The trial is set to begin on Monday, September 22nd at 9 a.m., under the close watch of regional and international observers. SSCC General Secretary urges dialogue over trial of Dr. Riek Machar. Juba, September 19, 2025, as South Sudan braces for the high-profile trial of suspended first Vice President and SPLMIO Chairman, Dr. Riek Machar Teni Durgan. The South Sudan Council of Churches, SSCC, has called for inclusive dialogue rather than courtroom battles to address the nation's deepening political crisis. In an exclusive interview with Radio Tamazuch, Reverend Tut Kwoni Niang, General Secretary of the SSCC and pastor in the South Sudan Evangelical Presbyterian Church, warned that the country's political situation has deteriorated severely since March and cautioned against steps that could return South Sudan to widespread violence. There is no problem that cannot be solved through dialogue, Reverend Tut stressed. We believe that going to court will not solve the current problem. In fact, it may worsen the situation. Call for national dialogue. Reverend Tut said the SSCC is advocating for a broad national conversation involving political leaders, communities, and faith actors to address disputes and preserve peace. He noted that the arrest of SPLMIO leaders, including Machar, deeply troubled church leaders and ordinary citizens alike. In response, the Council of Churches has initiated 70 days of prayer for peace and reconciliation. After 21 years of suffering through war, our leaders should be working day and night to ensure that our people live in peace, he said. Sadly, we're seeing the situation regress daily, economically, politically, and socially. Concerns over violence. The church leader expressed concern about rising insecurity and communal violence across South Sudan, warning that further political tensions could plunge the country into renewed conflict. Reverend Tut argued that court proceedings risk hardening divisions, while dialogue offers a path to national healing. If we allow ourselves to talk and listen to one another, a solution can be found. Dialogue is the key to effective governance and to managing our affairs as a nation. Role of the Church. Asked about the role of the Church in fostering peace, Reverend Tut said the SSCC is prepared to act as a neutral mediator in the crisis. He pointed to the Council's past involvement in peace efforts, including the Addis Ababa negotiations, the Kijiko process, and engagement during both liberation struggles and the 2011 referendum. We can do it again, he said. The Church has the moral authority and trusted partnerships to bring leaders to the table and prevent South Sudan from relapsing into war. Looking ahead, the appeal from the SSCC comes just days before Dr. Machar's trial is scheduled to begin in Juba on Monday, September 22nd. With tensions high, many observers see the Church's call as a timely reminder of the urgent need for reconciliation in a fragile nation still struggling to recover from decades of conflict. Breaking news: assassination threat against Dr. Riek Machar ahead of Monday's court hearing. Juba, September 19, 2025. A leaked security report from a credible source within South Sudan's military intelligence has revealed an assassination plot targeting suspended First Vice President Dr. Riek Machar Teni Durgan ahead of his first court hearing scheduled for Monday, September 22, 2025. According to the intelligence leak, the plot is being coordinated by elements within armed militias loyal to President Salva Kiir, allegedly dominated by factions from the Dinka community. The attackers reportedly intend to stage random skirmish shootings during the hearing, a cover tactic designed to assassinate Machar while creating the appearance of spontaneous violence. High-risk security situation. The revelation has intensified fears in the capital, Juba, already on edge following Machar's indictment on treason, murder, and crimes against humanity. Analysts warn that any attempt on Machar's life could trigger immediate retaliation and plunge the country into a fresh round of deadly conflict. A senior intelligence official who requested anonymity stated, "The plan is real and imminent. The attack is designed to happen in the middle of confusion. If Dr. Machar appears in person, his life will be in grave danger." Advisory to Machar. Based on the security warning, the source strongly recommends that Dr. Machar avoid attending the hearing in person and instead be represented by his international legal defense team, which includes prominent lawyers from across Africa. SPLMIO response. Officials within the SPLMIO have not yet issued an official statement on the assassination threat, but party insiders described the situation as an orchestrated attempt to silence Dr. Machar permanently. Civil society and religious leaders. Civil society groups and church leaders have previously warned the government against using the trial to settle political scores. Reverend Tut Kwoni Niang of the South Sudan Council of Churches recently emphasized the need for inclusive dialogue and peaceful resolution, warning that violent outcomes from the trial could destabilize the nation. International concerns. Diplomatic sources in Juba fear that if the assassination plot materializes, it could collapse ongoing peace efforts and ignite a conflict surpassing previous civil wars in brutality. Calls are mounting for the United Nations, African Union, and IGAD to urgently step in to provide independent security for Machar and ensure transparency in the legal process. The situation remains fluid. Security agencies in Juba are yet to officially confirm or deny the intelligence leak. 1. Social media claim. A post on Facebook, in a group, alleges a clash in Burebai Boma, Nasir. Gambella this morning SSPDF defeat SPLMIO and White Army in Burebiey Payam Nasir County and SSPDF score victory. But this is just one user post and lacks independent verification or detail. 2. UNICEF/humanitarian reports. UNICEF Ethiopia reported that many South Sudanese are fleeing fighting in Nasir and Olong counties, crossing the border into Gambella via the Burebiey entry point. These reports note ongoing clashes between SSPDF, SPLAIO, and White Army in those areas. 3. Previous incidents. There are earlier reports of clashes, refugee flows, and cross-border tensions around that border region, including reports of younger displaced people, lack of services, etc. What's not clear/verified. The precise time, scale, and outcome of today's alleged clash in Burebai, if it indeed happened, is not confirmed by major or official media outlets. There are contradictory or unverified claims. For example, social media says SSPDF defeat, but there is no independent corroboration. No reliable report currently gives casualty figures, displacement numbers are rising from that specific event, or exact location coordinates. Preliminary assessment. Given the context, tension is clearly high in border areas around Nasir/Olong and Burebiey, with frequent clashes or threat of conflict between these armed groups. Some clashes likely are happening, or have happened, very recently, but the specifics in Burebai for today are not yet firmly confirmed. Refugee movements via Burebiey suggest that civilians are being affected. If you like, I can try to check local media sources in Gambella, in Ethiopian languages, or official bulletins to see if there's a more solid confirmation on today's incident. Do you want me to look? Breaking. Clashes intensify in Burebai as SPLAIO pushes forward. September 20th, 2025 Burebai, South Sudan, Ethiopia border. Heavy clashes have continued for a second day around Burebai, a contested town near the South Sudan, Ethiopia border, as the Sudan People's Liberation Army, in opposition, SPLAIO, battles government troops. According to Colonel Mun Thuk Rui, Acting Director for Information and Communications of the SPLAIO, Sector 4 under the 3rd Infantry Division is spearheading the assault and remains confident of victory despite intense resistance. Our fighters are advancing with courage and determination. We will secure Burebai and defend our people's right to freedom, Colonel Rui said. Symbol of resistance. The clashes have galvanized SPLAIO supporters, who are being urged to remain on high alert as troops rally under the chant Viva, a call symbolizing defiance, resilience, and loyalty to the movement's fallen heroes. Colonel Rui praised the 3rd Infantry Division commander and the sector for leadership, highlighting their strategic discipline and sacrifice in leading the fight. Strategic importance of Burebiey. Burebiey lies along the South Sudan-Ethiopia frontier, an area that has long been a flashpoint in the conflict. The region serves as both a strategic gateway for cross-border trade and military movements, and a symbolic line of resistance for SPLAIO fighters who have historically drawn support from border communities. Control of Burebiey could shift the balance of power in Upper Nile and Jonglei fronts, providing the SPLAIO with leverage in both military and political arenas. Rising tensions and fears of wider war. The renewed clashes come amid growing fears that South Sudan could slide back into full-scale civil war as political disputes in Juba, especially the suspension and prosecution of opposition leader Dr. Riek, fuel unrest across multiple regions. The border fighting is being closely monitored by both Ethiopian authorities and international observers, given the potential spillover of violence into Gambela state. What's next? SPLAIO officials say the battle will continue until Burebiey is secured. Meanwhile, government forces have yet to issue an official statement on the clashes. Observers warn that if the fighting escalates, thousands of civilians in the border region could be displaced, worsening South Sudan's already dire humanitarian crisis. For now, the front line remains fluid as both sides dig in for what could become a prolonged confrontation.